Welcome to the For Your Health News podcast. We have a phenomenal powerhouse in the building. We have Councilwoman Plummer from Houston. And we're so excited that Houston was represented in this conversation. It's the home of the wonderful Beyonce, of course. Number one, we got to get that out of the way.
Right.
But number two, your work is so critical to this conversation. So why was it important for Houston to be here in DC, having representation here?
No, thank you so much for
Of
having me. This
course.
is exciting. Anytime I can express the needs of our community, it's important. So Fifth Ward is a historic community in the city of Houston. And in the 1940s, early 1950s, they were using creosote to preserve the wood in our rail yards. And now, decades later, we find that creosote into the groundwater created a plume underground, and those vapors have created an issue, a carcinogenic issue in that particular community. And so we exceed, in Fifth Ward, all of the carcinogenic levels, basically, in terms of community, upwards of 51% of the particular community. And so, as a council member that is at large in the city of Houston, so I get to play in all areas, and having a health background, I really just wanted to focus on quality of life concerns within our city. And the cancer cluster has been something that I've been watching for years. My dad actually went to high school in the area.
Wow.
So I've known about it for a while, just didn't know how to help.
Yeah.
And so I've really just tried to bring a lot of attention and really support the community work that's already happened.
Yeah. And I like that, number one, you have a personal connection to this community. So this work feels very, very important to you. What are some of the initiatives that you are working on to make sure that folks in this community have access to quality care, and not just that particular part of Houston, but just across the city of Houston as well?
No, of course. I mean, I've done multiple things, but I'm going to specifically talk about the Fifth Ward area. When I first heard about what was going on there, I very quickly realized that you can't really point blame on someone unless you prove correlation. And so I immediately looked to scientists, our epidemiologists, and I engaged with Morehouse School of Medicine. For many reasons. I'm a Spelman graduate, so there's a little bit of love there. But more importantly, I felt like we should find a medical school that had people that looked like us, that were taking care of us, because as we all know in the healthcare space, having someone that understands and knows who you are from a genetic perspective is really important, just in terms of understanding. And so Morehouse got on board. They agreed to come on board. Dr. Miles Richardson's been amazing, and they looked at all of the reports, and they just realized that it's going to be challenging to create the correlation between the creosote and the cancer, because the initial event happened so long ago. And so my job now is either to look at this from an environmental justice perspective and get reparations for the community, or find out ways in which the city of Houston can assist financially, which we did. We put in a $5 million relocation plan in place. But then also working closely with our local EPA agents and our local, the Texas TCEQ, which is the Texas Department of Quality, Environmental Quality, to see how we all can play a part in making sure that the residents are protected. And so it's really a team approach.
Yeah.
I'm just bringing and shining a light on it. I was really fortunate to have a 3-day Cancer Cluster Collaborative Summit last year that really brought all the researchers, science, community, and really put everybody in one room for 3 days and had some deep conversations about what the community wants. We're looking at a community benefits agreement to see, because oftentimes, right, as activists, we typically don't tell people what we want.
Yeah.
And so my job is to kind of pare that down and see what's reasonable, and then who I should go to ask for that support.
That's so important. And I think what I appreciate about what you're saying is that you tap different parts of different types of people to be part of the solution, right? And it shows the community that this is a multifaceted approach, and this is a very collaborative approach to solving this issue. And I'm sure for folks there, it's also, you are the top of our minds, right? And that's very important. You mentioned something called environmental injustice,
Yes.
right? What if someone doesn't understand what that means? What does it mean?
No, absolutely. So, and this is beautiful because in Houston, we see more of it, I don't know how many states or cities have these issues, but so anything that happens within the environment that negatively affects the health equity of a community is injustice, environmental injustice. But when it's cumulative, that's when it's really an injustice. And so let me give you an example. The city of Houston doesn't have the authority to give permits to a cement batch plant or a metal or a cement crushing facility or a metal work facility. We don't have that. That comes from the state.
Got it.
And so as you would think, a city would protect its communities because we have a reason to do so. Oftentimes, the state is so far removed that they can't make good judgment and reasonable decisions for a specific community.
Yeah.
And Black and brown communities, the land typically is inexpensive. We don't have the resources to fight, and we're taking care of really basic needs in our lives. I call Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? Food, shelter, it's really the basics.
Yeah.
And so because of that, we often find that they'll put these facilities in our communities, and there's not much we can do. And so it is my job to make sure that there's environmental justice at all times in the city of Houston because I'm an at-large member. And so I write letters of support to see, four communities to TCEQ and really mandate them to make different decisions. And so that's really probably my largest job in this space is to bring awareness.
And this is just a point of personal privilege here as the podcast host, but I always love seeing women in public office. So I just want to ask, what made you get into public office in the first place, and how has your journey been so far?
So it's a little bit of a weird story. I'm a dentist by trade, and so that was always my space. I had no intention on getting in public office. Unfortunately, a tragedy happened to me in my life with a surrogacy situation with my son. Getting a little personal here, and I lost legal custody of my son in a surrogacy fight. And women, we're mama bears. You mess with our kids, it's on. And
good luck to you.
Right. And so unfortunately, I did lose custody of Alex, but I wrote the legislation in the state of Texas to change it.
Wow.
And so that was my first dabble into politics. I rewrote the legislation and I got through the House and Senate unanimously.
Wow.
So now when families want to create when families want to create or extend their families in ways of surrogacy, they're now protected if there's a divorce.
I love that. And
Thank
this is why we
you.
called you the powerhouse in the beginning. It's very well-earned title. Well, thank you so much for being such an advocate for Houston's 5th Ward. Thank you for just being who you are. And I think for having a public official as part of this conversation is a very important thing. So thank you for making the time and the trip to DC.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
Oh, of course. Have a good one.
Okay, thanks.